Welcome to Will Talks. Today I am super thrilled. I am so happy and I'm absolutely in gratitude to Pranav Kothari from Educational Initiatives, also very lovingly known as EI. This is one company that I have seen for maybe 15 years or maybe even more than that. This was the first company that introduced me to student assessment. This was the first company that even told me, "Are your students learning?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, my students are learning. What do you mean? I know exactly that my students are learning." And then came the follow up question that nobody ever expected. He said, "How do you know?" And what followed was long silence. So I'm so glad that I'm here today to talk to Pranav, an old friend and somebody who has been working in the field of education technology, student assessment, learning, and everything that matters in education for India. At the EI office in Bangalore. Pranav, so happy that you could, you've allowed us to take over your office today and tell us anything that you feel that people need to know about you. Set the context for today, and then I want to share how and where I met you for the first time.
Thanks for inviting. Well, I am struggling to match your level of enthusiasm, but this is great. I grew up in Ahmedabad. I think growing up, I used to go to school in a rickshaw with about 16 students. We used to sit four in the back, four in the middle, four on a partia, two by the side. So literally like 14 students in an auto rickshaw. And as usual, India's roads are noisy with honking, with multiple things going on. But at every traffic signal we stopped, all of that became silent, and the visual was that of, beggars who would sort of ask for money. And I would see students who are my size, my height, my color, who were essentially asking for money. And I was thinking, why are they not going to school? And that's sort of one of those memories that has stuck with me. So as I was finishing, my grad school, and I was thinking about that, I was so fortunate to get a good quality education. I got to go to St. Xavier's for schooling, Georgia Tech for engineering, and Harvard for my MBA, that the best use of my education is to be a support system for others to get a great education. And that's sort of my journey into the education sector. And this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
But what an image that was, yeah. Because I mean, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and every time we hit a traffic light, and we see other children coming in less fortunate, asking for alms, my daughter always asks, I mean, why are they doing this? And she almost sheds a tear. And then I feel like as adults we've seen so much of it, sometimes we just get normalized or we get desensitized. But as a child, to have that experience and wonder why and not knowing why, I think that has really etched a permanent space in your heart. And I'm so glad that happened in a way, because then I've seen you dedicate your entire life. You signed up your life. I mean, Georgia Tech and I don't know, Harvard. You could be making millions in selling, I don't know, soap or something.
I am touching millions of lives through
Yes.
this work that we do. And I think that's far more inspiring than, let's say, a number in a bank account. And I think what has happened is, while we have talked about the students who have been outside of school on the streets, but 99% of India has gone to school but is yet not learning, right? Today, if we sort of talk to students, they have been able to memorize that the area of a square is length squared, or a rectangle is length into breadth. But if you show them an odd shape size, like a field, they say this shape does not have area. And that's because the only area they know is the formula of area.
Oh, so what you're actually saying there is that while parents send their kids to school, they may not actually be getting ready for the real world.
See, even when the optics are all okay, the school buses are running on time, you have certified teachers, the students are wearing a tie and uniforms, you have sort of the timetable, you have a playground, you have all of these optically things that are looking right. That doesn't necessarily mean that students are learning with understanding. They are simply going through the motions of finishing a syllabus, of doing homework, of remembering facts and figures and procedures, regurgitating them on the exams, getting 90% marks, but they still may not be employable. They may not be able to crack the toughest exams in India and in their lives.
This puts a funny thought in my mind because in when I was studying economics, the first thing I think economics 101 was they said buyer beware in India, buyer beware, and I see that everywhere. Right, you study for an exam and then you go to a coaching classes. There also they teach you for an exam and you do the exam. Then before you get into a what do you think about these things? You want to throw a little more light around that?
Yeah, Professor Karthik Murugan talks about how India does not have an education system, it has a filtration system, right? Essentially, at every moment, every stage of the education, there's a filtration happening. Today, if you want to get into a tuition class, there's a test that the tuition agency conducts, right? Of course, there's a test to get into 11th standard, a test to get into college, a test to get into sort of university, to get into jobs. And people are not sort of essentially studying for learning, they're just studying to maximize marks. Now, maximizing marks is a normal human tendency, but a good test, if you're studying towards a good test, that's a good thing. But if you're studying towards a bad test, that's basically a waste of time and energy, right? Today, some exams are asking questions where the only skill involved is remembering the date a battle was fought, the name of the king that fought the battle, and how many people died, which is available on Google. But if you have understood sort of why the battle was fought and how can it be prevented in the future, that's sort of the knowledge and the understanding that one has to gain from it.
And this is really true because every time I, as a school leader, want to hire people, I get 200, 300, 400 applications for one job. And I probably end up just talking to 5 or 10 of them because the rest of them have hobbies like surfing the internet and listening to music. But they're all qualified. But the people who actually get the job, when you really look at it, when you really check, have you had any experience with that? Anything around that?
Absolutely. I think this is something that all of us as employers face, right? And such a waste of time. And look at the irony at this. Well, you have a country that has 30% of adults who are looking for jobs, and you have employers who have enough positions that can cover all of them. But this problem persists for the last 20 years. The reason is that people are finishing 12 years of schooling, finishing 3 to 4 years of college. They're essentially still not employable because they have only memorized facts, figures to pass those exams. And when you have really good exams that check for, let's say, to get into your school, well, is no joke, right? You're going to put you're going to basically test them for soft skills. You're going to test them for things that they can do in the moment, for spontaneity. You can check whether their worldview is more than knowing just English, math, science formulas. And when those tests come, these students have had no exposure, right? All they know is what's in the textbook. And this problem persists. The moment we ask a question in our asset test, the biggest complaint we get is, this is not in syllabus. This is not in the textbook. For even the person who's designed, let's say, a CUET said, I will only ask questions from the textbook because then you can't do coaching for it. But this is the most ironical statement because coaching exists because you have a finite set of questions that you can just do hundreds of times. Remember. So Indian students, when they get a question, they're essentially looking for a pattern. इसके जैसा पहले question कहाँ देखा है? उसको twist करके मैं इसका answer कैसे दूँ? They are not reading for context. Like a test like PISA would essentially give you the context. It's an unfamiliar setting. And then you're expected to distill the information and then give the answer. So we are doing pattern recognition as opposed to comprehension and answer.
That's so true. That's so true because one of the patterns that most Indian children learn and pick up very soon is to start looking at the teacher and looking and looking at all the visual cues and the auditory cues to see, oh, ये teacher ने जब ये sum बोला था ना, थोड़ा ज़्यादा emphasis किया, ये आएगा exam में, ये पढ़ना है हमको. And I think, they say this about engineers, right? You throw a 500 page textbook in front of an engineer. The only question he's going to ask you is exam kabhi hai bolo.
I'll tell you a funny story on this. Like you're on these school visits, right? Yeah. Sometimes inspectors come to check on the school. So this officer comes into the classroom. The teacher says to a student, हाँ Ramu, ये खड़े होके ये chapter को read करो. And Ramu's question to the teacher is, देख के पढ़ना है या बिना देख के पढ़ना है? And that's the system today, right? The questions will say, like, in that story, for that character, what was the color of the dress? Of course, I'm exaggerating, but the
Yeah.
point is that, unless we are going to create a culture where the understanding of the concept is far more important than remembering the exact paragraph to put in to the question paper in high stakes exams, we're not going to move. Think of a think of football. Think of the Olympic football and think of football on a village which has no defined playground. Where are all the students running towards to hit the ball?
The goal.
Exactly. So it does not matter whether you're going to a rural government school or a top end private school. If the goalpost is the same, we will have the entire country running towards memorization. We have to change the goalpost. And see the beauty of this. If you change the goalpost, if our exams look like international best exams that are in the best countries, or like PISA, or questions that we make in our asset, there's STIMS, there's Pearls. If the goalpost changes, the entire energy in the ecosystem today will start running towards a new goalpost. All the effort that parents make in picking and dropping their kids, all the efforts that teachers make in teaching, all the efforts that students spend countless hours in learning will be channelized towards this new goalpost. And remember, this comes at zero marginal cost. It will cost the same paper and printing, it will cost the same time and energy, but it's all channelized towards a far more productive energy. And then 200 applications will come to you and you will have a problem of choice.
Yeah, because all of them are going to be so good, right?
Exactly.
And what I hear you saying is like when the test changes, the whole country changes because everyone starts aligning towards that test and everyone starts teaching in the way that the test is going to be made. But before even, why should one life, my child is growing by one day every day, right? And I can't wait for, let's say, the test to change. So as a parent concerned about my child's education, I want to make sure that the 5, 6, 7, 8 hours that my child is spent learning something today actually transforms into lifelong learning. समझ में आना चाहिए ना, समझ में आना चाहिए. Indians are so famous for repeating everything 3, 4 times because they know first time समझ में नहीं आता. We're so used to that idea. As parents, what do you think, yeah, that I can do if I don't want to wait for my school to change and transform and suddenly get it right like 15 years later? What can I do today as a parent to at least know if my child is learning what she should learn at this age? And how do I know if that learning is going to stay for long? Because I know for a fact that she may not do very well in memory based examinations, but she will do very well in life. What do you think? Anything? You think we can do something?
Parents have a very important role to play in education, and they can, really help to solve this problem. Of course, like having books at home and having and encouraging your students to read is an important skill. I think anything that's grounded in practical, taking them to a nature camp, right? There's this joke, right, where a student went to a forest and said, "Why is the air smells like laundry?" Because the detergent has nature infused smells and they have never been to nature before, right? And so just anything that has an element of, why is a balloon, sort of how is the air expanding when you go to a petrol pump, sort of how does how is petrol going into the tank, what happens in the car, anything that's grounded in practical reality, and having a conversation with the child, asking the why does this work the way it works, will tremendously help. In terms of measuring, unfortunately, India does not have good quality of tests that are available. Of course, I can do a shameless plug and talk about EI Asset and
But I
the
think it was
fact that
brilliant. I really think it was brilliant because it allowed me to see where my students are failing in that sense. And the beauty is I didn't have to wait 10 years. I can work on it now. मुझे अभी बताओ ना
Yes.
कि मेरे बच्चे को क्या चाहिए, so that I can give it.
Yes.
Right?
So we make an on-demand, test called ASSET. It stands for Assessment of Scholastic Skills Through Educational Testing. It's for English, Math, Science, Hindi, Social Studies, as well as Computer Science.
Any school, any board.
Any school, any board, anytime, anywhere. And the results are available instantly. Each and every question has a very long process cycle from ideation to someone else looking at the question, commenting, a third person solving the question as a student, a fourth person solving it as part of a test paper. All the questions are designed to check for conceptual understanding. None of them you can prepare for. What the report tells you is what skills and competencies is your child proficient at, and what are the concepts that they need more support at. We also sort of talk about how that can be remediated. And then we have a program called MindSpark that sort of adapts to a child's current knowledge state and helps cure some of these misconceptions they have.
But this is fabulous. You know why this is fabulous? Because the one thing that teachers cannot do is to test again and again and again and again, because there are 40 kids in a class, 50 kids in a class. They can't test. Easier play for teachers is to play some video on the internet, or, on a widescreen TV or on a projector, and then say, "Ha, baba, hum edtech use kar rahe hain, hum technology use kar rahe hain." But I think if you look at schools today, most of the technology on the ERP front, on the payroll front, on the fee collection front, and things like that. If you ask school owners, they say, "Ek hi software chahiye, fee collection software chahiye."
Yes, yes, that's also an important need for them.
Absolutely. But what we are also now seeing is the biggest advantage of technology in education will probably be in the space of assessment. You think my assessment of that is, what do you think?
So, Willie, before we sort of get enamored by technology in education, we have to understand what is something that technology is doing that human teachers were not able to do both 200 years ago, 50 years ago, when you and I went to school, and today, right? So let's unpack this. There are actually 20 rigorous studies that show that technology has made a zero impact in education. JPAL has published RCT papers when one laptop per child was given, or essentially, virtual classes were done. There are many, many documentation of how technology has made zero impact on student learning outcomes. However, we were participants in randomized control trials where we are seeing that students are learning 4 to 5 times more than the control group when MindSpark is being used. So what are the 4 underlying things that we have discovered as a result of this dissonance? Number 1, if you're a school principal, but let's say you're a school teacher, you walk into a grade 7 classroom today, you have students who are 40 unique individual human beings. They're all special, they're all talented, but they're all at different knowledge states. There are students who are sort of struggling with concepts that they should have mastered in 4th grade. There are students who are so brilliant they should actually be sitting in the 9th grade. Even the world's best teacher, who's well qualified, who's well paid, who's super motivated, walks into this classroom, is going to face this challenge of students at very different knowledge states with very different learning styles. And the number one request that I get from teachers is, I wish I had a smaller class size. A smaller class size will not fly with you because you'll be like, boss, bill kaun pay karega?
Correct.
Right? But the way we can do this with technology is think of that if every student had a personalized adaptive learning software, now this teacher has 40 digital assistants. These digital assistants will work with each child at their own pace, at their own level, with providing some emotional support, providing the motivation, and report back to the main teacher. This is what we found about this student. This is what we found about your class. This is what you should be teaching tomorrow, because the majority of your students do not understand how to add 1/4 plus 2/3. However, Pranav and Will are 2 students who don't even know how to add 1/5 plus 2/5. And by the way, Shia and Ria are 2 students who are actually already at multiplication of fractions. This is a daily playlist for the teacher that the software can aggregate this data and provide, and that makes them more effective. So the number one reason why education technology would make an improvement in learning outcomes is it needs to be adaptive. The second is it has to be based in pedagogy research. We did 10 years of asset assessments before we even built MindSpark. We found very interesting patterns. We found that when students are asked, is 1/4 bigger or 1/3, they would tell us that 1/4 is bigger because they think 4 is bigger than 3. We found that students would tell us that 2.5 is actually a smaller number than 2.11 because they say 511 se kam hai, 25 211 se kam hai, kyunki iska length chota hai. We found like very interesting patterns over assessing more than 1 million students over 10 years. And we said that MindSpark will be tackling each of these misconceptions. So grade 5, I can tell you with the frequency distribution, what are the top 7 mistakes students make and how MindSpark can help achieve each of them. The third reason is contextualization. You need to do this in a language that the child sort of resonates with, they're most comfortable with. The pictures, the sounds, the names, the images, the currency has to be something that is relatable to the child. If I do Little Red Riding Hood in Hindi, it will not make sense. I have to be able to put a poem that the child is able to talk to their grandmother about. Finally, the use of data. Right now, most education technology is just disseminating. Delivery is not equal to absorption. Just because I've shown a video doesn't mean the child has gotten it. In fact, we did a systematic study of more than 2,000 teachers across 400 schools, and we found that systematically, 93% of the cases, teachers overestimate what their students can do by a factor of 50%. And the way we did this is all the students took the acid test. We asked the teachers to predict that for their class, for their students, just predict what percentage of them would get it right. And then we had real data of what the students did. And we found that teachers vastly overestimate. Because teachers think, मैंने तो topic पढ़ा दिया, मस्त पढ़ाया, of course समझ में आया बच्चे को. But delivery is not equal to absorption, right? And so finally, what is the data that you're capturing when you're disseminating videos is nothing. I cannot tell you if the child is paying attention and learning from it, or the child is mentally checked out, or the child has opened another browser and is sort of doing something else. But the way we collect data in MindSpark is that every stroke is captured. Like, the software doesn't move forward unless the child is given an answer, and then we give an explanation, give them a chance to try again. So when technology in education is adaptive, based in pedagogy research, contextualized to the child's needs, and data is being captured for continuous improvement, that's when technology can make an outstanding difference in student learning outcomes. Remember that neither man or machine can do what man and machine can do together.
Amazing insights there, because what I'm seeing is, while most teachers and most school principals look for stage management in teachers, oh, my teachers are working very hard, they're burning the midnight oil, they're putting in so much effort, they're speaking with so much energy and with so much enthusiasm and carrying 15 different charts. They assume that by doing input, output automatically is assumed, which I think I'm taking back as a big learning, saying delivery is not equal to, or distribution or delivery is not equal to absorption. And what we need to do is, while we check on delivery as well, we also want to be checking absorption, and we want to be checking it frequently.
Yes.
And we shouldn't be waiting for the exam. What I really feel is, parents today are willing to pay. It's not like they're not willing to pay. In fact, parents who are lower empowered economically want to pay more money, actually.
Yes.
Many of the rich parents are seen, अरे वो ठीक है, वो मेरा business संभाल लेगा, तो it's fine, वो तो गल्ला संभालेगा मेरा. But the
Maslow's hierarchy is different.
but the parents who really don't have much money and much scope, they want to break out of the cycle of poverty.
Yes.
They look at their child as the one who's going to be the torch bearer.
Yes.
ये मेरा बच्चा मेरा family में first college जाएगा.
Yes.
And they're willing to put, 30% of their income, 40% of their income in that.
It's outstanding.
And they're willing to do that. It's just that if they start getting impressed by stage management and delivery, then they're going to be getting a bad deal. And that hurts me.
Yes.
Because then we're dealing with people who cannot take that hit.
Yes.
We're dealing with people who we cannot fault.
Yes, that's a lot of hard-earned money, Willie, that these people are doing maybe day laborer jobs. They're essentially working 8 to 8 and devoting a large part of their savings in the hopes that this investment will yield returns when the child in the future becomes employable, right? So ultimately, education is a very long gestation period. As a parent of a 7-year-old, you're not going to get your return on education for the next 15 years until the child joins a job. So all of this time, you're making investments on hope, right? With no liquidity and essentially no visibility of where your money is going. So it is possible for parents to identify what is good education, right? For example, can your child read the local newspaper that you've just picked up from somewhere? Can your child go to the market and do transactions? Can the child essentially, if you're a painter, be able to calculate and tell you what the effort estimate would be on this and what we should charge on a per square foot basis and the total? These are all useful life skills that students can exhibit early on to help their parents. For parents to know what is good quality education, unfortunately, they can't look at it like marble classrooms or AC or digital boards or uniforms or the fact that buses pick up from their doorstep, those are visible signs, but that's not good education. That's convenience. That's luxury. Right?
Shouldn't mistake convenience for education.
That's right. Today, we find that parents are switching schools just because the bus stop is closer to their home. And I get it. I understand parents are busy. But the way you measure good education is the child learning? Is the child doing well in real life? Are they understanding concepts? Are they coming and telling you the why, not the what?
I was talking to a friend of mine, not friend, but I was talking to this gentleman who is about 65, 70 years, about, around that much. And he was telling me, Willie, once you retire, the greatest happiness will either come from your kids or the greatest worry.
I don't think you're retiring anytime.
No.
Anytime, period. Knowing you.
But I just feel like you have to make our kids ready for that crazy new world that is happening, because I think I see more foreigners and expats in India today than earlier. I see expats in almost every organization today.
Yeah.
I see out of the 200 applications that I get for a job, I see 3 of them are expats, which means my kids are either going to go and join the workforce abroad, or they're going to be working abroad. Workforce is going to be here, right? So we want to keep them relevant and we keep them this thing. I want to ask you something, and I'm really asking you this because I want to figure this out. India is a land of villages. India is a land of small places, and there are schools across the country. Someone was telling me the other day that within a 15, 20, 25 kilometer radius, you will find a school.
1 kilometer. The law says that within 1 kilometer of every habitation, there has to be a primary school. Within 3 kilometers, it has to be a middle school. And within 5 kilometers, there has to be a higher secondary school.
I love this, which means access to education to where people are staying is available in India right now. And India is a huge country.
Yes.
It's a massive country, and India has done that beautifully.
Yes.
Now we should be talking about quality of education. How will a school, let's say, in one of these places, how can they increase the quality of school? Because access to talent pool may not be there. Access to great quality teachers may not be there. So how do we then build that equity in that education? What can you do? I'm sure you've been thinking about, you're a Georgia Tech guy, then you're a Harvard guy. And then after that, I'll tell you where I met you for the first time. When I was in IIM Ahmedabad doing an MDP course there, I saw you hanging around, and you came and sat next to me for a random luck, actually. And you like, so what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm a school leader and stuff like that. Oh, why are you here? What do you want to learn? And we got into that question. And I asked you, what are you doing here? He's like, no, I'm thinking of joining this new company. I just want to make sure it's legit. And you're here now for like 13 plus years or whatever. And you've been doing this great quality work. And at a time when people don't stay in a company for more than 2 years, you've put in 6 lifetimes in this organization. There's no way that you stayed here. You're a smart guy, right? You can't fool you. There's no way that you would stay here if you didn't absolutely believe in the work, one, which is the stated thing, but more so the impact and the change that you've been able to make, not for millions, but even that one child at a time. Tell me something more about this.
Sure. Willie, I remember that day I met you at IIM Ahmedabad, and I thought to myself, wow, this person is a school leader and yet taking the time out to come and learn. And I talked to you just a week ago, and you were talking to me about the number of conferences you go every day to sharpen your skill set. So you are very inspirational in terms of constantly learning. I think, teachers and students should always take from you how to unlearn, learn, and relearn as we talk it. I think India has 1.5 million schools. 300 million students go to school every day. They are served by 9 million teachers. There are 30% of some of these positions are vacant. So I think human teachers are going to be very important. Early on in my career, I thought technology can solve all the problems. I couldn't be more wrong. Human teachers, the fact that we have across the country, are doing in education what sort of robots and machines cannot do. This includes building an emotional connection with the child, teaching them values and attitude, holding group study lessons, activity-based learning. There are many, many things that human teachers are doing. But what India is struggling with, and for no fault of the teachers themselves, because the system sort of is not supporting them enough, what India is struggling with is students to be able to master all these concepts with clarity. Now, both of us can keep sitting here and dreaming of a world where these 9 million teachers are like the best teacher we remember from our school. but unlikely to happen in a lifetime. That's kind of like saying all of us will clear the pole vault like the Olympic winner is, right? It's not going to happen. But what we can do is we can elevate the ground so that everybody has a higher chance, has a higher bar that they can climb. Now, how do you elevate this? Is technology can play a beautiful role in this. See, what are some good things about technology? Technology, like a Google search, whether you do it in San Francisco outside the Google headquarters, or you do this in Malawi, or you do this in Mumbai, the quality of the search is the same, right? It may come at different speeds, but that's the telecom network. But the quality, the rank order, the algorithm is disseminated globally in the remotest corners without loss of fidelity. And that's the power of technology. A small group of people, for example, the work we do here at MindSpark, our team of about 300 people, are now serving 3 million students in the remotest parts of a Dantewada in Chhattisgarh to the flashiest schools in Mumbai, Dubai, and South Africa, the same quality of education, right? And what this is doing, it's elevating the game of the teacher, no matter how they are, whether they are in an American school or they are in a government school that is under-resourced. I'm not saying all teachers have to cross a certain bar. All I'm saying is, can technology help each teacher to be better from where they are? And that's the role that technology can play.
You know what I'm seeing with MindSpark and the work that you're doing, and especially with the work that technology is helping education, I am seeing that it is same teachers, better results.
Yes.
That's what we want to do. All of us want better.
Yes.
Right? We're all working for better. We're not working for best.
Yes.
We're working for better than yesterday. Continuous and never-ending improvement. Is my child learning better than yesterday? Is my teacher learning and then teaching better than yesterday? That's what we want to be looking at. And I love this idea. I love the fact that we're able to bring in equity in education. We're able to say, boss, today you are not defined by where you were born. You are not defined by how much money your father makes. You are not defined by anything else apart from the fact ghar pe current hai. You know, you have electricity. And today, the telecom players have really created a dense network in the country, 4G, 3G, 5G, whatever. It's all happening. Internet is perhaps the cheapest in the world, I think, in India. And if our students, if our children can use that, that's the demographic divide or dividend that people are talking about. And I think as a school leader, as a school owner, it's time for us, as a principal, it's time for us to say, boss, mere ko samajh mein nahi aaya na, chalega. It's okay. I don't have to understand everything, but what I need to do is I need to make sure that I sacrifice my pride, I sacrifice my thinking, and be open. Be open to understanding what is this technology. Forget about the tech. You don't need to understand how the tech works. You don't need to even spell algorithm for that matter. What you need to understand is how is it making a difference to my child? How is it making a difference to my teacher? How can my child, my teacher, my parent actually do better? I think that is the responsibility. What do you think?
But it's intimidating, no? Really, imagine, as a school principal, you don't know what is technology. You may have a different business, or even if you are here, this is not how you studied, right? You studied without technology and you did just fine. And there's also this narrative that people say that technology accelerates the equity, the digital divide, right? People say that this is promoting inequity. Any thoughts on that you have, Willie, on will technology accelerate the inequity or will it accelerate equity?
There are two things that I wanted to share in that side. One, I used to think in my school, my personal school, I run a school for, let's say, the urban poor, and I used to think that by adding technology here, by adding devices here, by adding internet here, by adding anything that would require the parent to make additional investments is going to create a big digital divide. And so, I told myself, no, if I don't add it, no one's going to buy it. No one's going to put that as a priority. People don't, in my head, just in my head, I said, people bought, let's say, Microsoft Windows, not for an operating system, but for Microsoft Office, the killer app. Right? They're willing to buy this to get to that. So what is that? What is that goal? What is that payload that I can bring in my school that requires them to get computers? Fine. It's a matter of time. Semiconductors are becoming cheaper. Production qualities are going. This thing, today you don't need a 50,000 or a 1 lakh rupee phone today. You can get a 15,000 rupee smartphone today and it kicks I mean, you know,
Censored.
it does everything that a child would
Yes,
require to do.
yes.
And you got to also consider that kids and parents will invest continually where they see value. We are a very value conscious set of people, and that is going to happen. I think today almost everybody has a phone, and people who don't have are on the way. Yeah, I mean, I know everybody doesn't have a phone, but they're getting there.
Yes.
Right? We cannot not do it saying that किसी के पास नहीं है. Then never it's going to be there.
Yeah. But really, like a lot of school leaders today are afraid to add anything new in their schools because that means an extra line item, because that means it's more money they have to collect from parents. They're afraid that parents will come outside and do dharnas and protest against the school fees. So school leaders are scared of adding technology in education because, parents will hound them and ask them millions of questions and essentially protest. How can they get over that?
So you're asking me like a school owner and a school leader. I'm less of a school leader now and more of just somebody who mentors my school. And I ask my principals, dharna to hone wala hai. People are going to fight. Everyone's going to ask questions. Why? Because they have a right to ask, na. But what are they asking? I don't want 500 people outside my school saying, यहाँ पे पढ़ाई क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? Why are you not changing? Why are you not adding tech? दुनिया आगे निकल रहा है, तुम वहीं पे हो. I don't want those questions. I would rather have questions like, why are you adding technology? Why are you adding this thing? Why are you doing all these great things for my kids? Why are you adding cost here? Because you want to add this new, incredible, cutting edge tech that is going to help my children learn.
Nice.
I would fight that.
बोलने वाले तो बोलेंगे, but it's about what are they asking?
What are
the questions?
Exactly.
And which of them is a lesser devil?
And what are those answers I want to spend fighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, you find something purposeful and meaningful in life, no? Jaan de denge, na?
That's a beautiful thought. That's a wonderful way of looking at it.
That's it. So, that's just...
Nice. No, I mean, regardless of what you do, there will be questions. The point is, do you want the questions that are moving the needle on student learning outcomes? As a school, as a school leader, as a teacher, I think we're all here because we want to invest in the future of India. We want to not be in a situation where Willy's son, who's running the school, is also looking at 200 resumes and hiring one teacher.
Yeah.
We want to be in the space where the teacher and the educational software has sort of, shaken hands and is sort of helping the next generation learn in ways that the previous generation could never do. I feel that technology can reduce equity and is the only way to do it at large scale. Right? For the last 50 years, we've not had technology in education, and we've had the greatest inequity in education, where today the school you go to is correlated to your parental income. Today, the learning outcomes of a child are correlated to the parental income at home. A good education system will sort of find that inequity when the age is 5, but by the time the child is 15, there's equal access to opportunities. During the pandemic, when schools were shut, the lowest income were hurt the most because they are the ones who essentially didn't have this. But we found a way to provide this education to students in their smartphones using their parents' internet connection and continue their learning journey. And this is the power of technology. I think technology is the only way which can adapt to a child's current knowledge state, allow children to learn 2 to 3 years in 1 year when they are behind. It's the only way to bridge this. Without technology, inequity is just going to exacerbate.
Absolutely. And I want to think about this little thing about teacher burnout, yeah, because a lot of principals will come, very, very feeling oriented people. नहीं, ये मेरा teachers के लिए काम ज़्यादा है, और if I do this, then my teachers are going to feel like there's more burden. I was doing a podcast yesterday, and this guy tells me everybody who comes to him says one thing: time nahi hai. So his response to that was, boss, time to utna hi hai. Bhagwan ne utna hi time diya hai. Skills badhao. That's what we have to do. So in that sense, I personally don't think that this actually increases work. Maybe initially because that learning curve, right? As you're learning, maybe initially it feels that way, but eventually what kind of experience you've had, what kind of research you've seen across schools or teachers?
Willy, I just saw a video yesterday where, all the Tata Safaris and the Tata SUVs are built in factories which have 100% women. Can you believe that? The biggest, baddest SUVs are made 100% by women. Now, if you unpack this, it's because the use of robotics, the use of automation, it doesn't mean those women are working less harder. They're just working smarter. Those women who were essentially at home doing chores are now producing 20 lakh rupee SUVs thanks to technology that has supported them. They're now earning where they can invest in their education. So I think technology in education is going to be that game changer for teachers. All the chores that teachers are doing, correcting homework. Why should teachers correct notebooks? Why? Tell me one good reason. A software can correct it faster. It can provide personalized feedback. It can do it sort of in ways that the child can get instant feedback. Not 3 दिन बाद मेरे को मेरा notebook मिलेगा red mark और blue marks के साथ. Right? Teachers can delegate testing to technology. Teachers can delegate practice of thousands of worksheets to technology. Teachers should sort of do what only human teachers can do, which is inspire, which sort of run experiments, facilitate debates. And a teacher's role will just get so much better, sexier, sort of impactful when technology comes in. None of us are talking about काम कम करना है, but all of us are talking about output कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं, right? We're not saying that the teacher today is working, let's say, 7 hours a day in the classroom, that they should work 8 or they should work 5. We're saying, can the 7 hours be sort of purposeful? I'll give you an example from history. 4,000 years ago, the pyramids were built. At that time, the pyramids were the tallest structure there. The pyramids were roughly the size of a 30-story building today. The pyramids were built without technology. You had essentially people who carried big rocks and stones, and we don't even know how those pyramids were built. And rough estimates are that 10,000 laborers were sort of used to build the pyramids. A few years ago, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai was built. Do you have an estimate of how tall the Burj is?
90 floors?
So it's about 200 floors, which means it's about 7 times the height of the Burj. Do you have a sense of how many people were used to build the Burj?
No, maybe 10,000 people.
10,000 people. So remember that we used 10,000 people to build the pyramids. We used 10,000 people to build the Burj. We did not use less people. We just built a taller building. 7 times taller. So the point here is, we are not saying we need lesser human teachers, but can the same human teachers deliver 7 times learning with the use of technology?
This is absolutely stunning. and let me draw the parallel here for you. I call my friend and I say, let's meet. He's like, what's the agenda? Kuch nahi, drive karenge, thoda baat karenge. And he goes like, yeah, kabhi bhi aaja. If I call his wife, she doesn't have time to pick up the phone also. You know why? Because women have so much on their mind. They want to, understand, I'm speaking absolutely respectfully. They are totally time bound. They have a plan. They have tasks. They have checklists. They have productivity systems in place to run their home, their second business, their third hustle, their in-laws, their own parents, their kids, and the work that they do. And I have seen how teachers work in school. If the teacher sees and knows that what this is going to do is going to dramatically improve their effectiveness, improve their efficiency, they absolutely take it. And my prayer to teachers is that, boss, this is what you want. This is what you want inside the classroom so that you can do well. Because I genuinely feel that teachers want to make a huge difference. And that is why they put in so much effort in the delivery.
Yes.
The
Absolutely.
reason they're doing so much of delivery effort is because they feel that automatically translates into absorption.
Yes.
And they also overestimate that by 50%.
Yes. Yes. The outcomes.
The outcome.
Yes. So, Willie, I think if you look at Europe or you look at the US, essentially what you find is that productivity is essentially the metric that is much, much higher than India by a factor of 5 or so, right? So as India aspires to be a $5 trillion or a $15 trillion economy, as India sort of aspires to increase its GDP per capita proportionately, this can't come out of thin air. This can only come out by productivity. What does productivity mean? Productivity means that the value that you're delivering per unit of time is sort of also improving, which is why someone's willingness to pay sort of goes up, right? So the way we can do this is if our education system delivers much greater value, employers will be willing to pay a much greater fee. If our education system delivers a much greater value, the students will be earning a lot more from their employers and be willing to pay much higher for education for their child, which means more fees for the school, more sort of salaries for the teacher. This can come when you deliver value. You cannot capture value before creating value, right? If you sort of increase the pie, then you have a right to ask for a share of the pie. So, the way teachers can also earn more money is by using the right forms of technology, showing that what they are delivering to their students is also getting absorbed. Students are learning, understanding, students are passing high stakes exams with flying colors, they're getting into dream jobs, they're getting into unheard of salaries. And then the point that we all know intuitively that education improves lives, or if you get an education, you'll get a good job, will become a reality as opposed to a myth.
Super interesting. So I'm now feeling like for every school owner or principal out there who's struggling with this idea of how do I get more children, how do I get more admissions, right? I think rather than thinking of all the bells and whistles and all those hard infra based evidences, I think they need to start thinking about if they can just answer that one question, if they can lead through that. How are my kids learning? How do I know? How can I openly, transparently share that with my parents?
Yes.
And how can I build a partnership between my teacher where my teacher's proud and happy?
Yes.
Every teacher will become happy when they know their children are learning.
Yes, outcome metrics have to be number of unique concepts learned with understanding. Let's say at the beginning of the year, you take the asset test, you find out that students don't know 19 out of 40 concepts. By the middle of the year, do they now know 12? And then, ultimately, have they mastered all of them? You can do this on a daily basis, sort of with learning software. The outcome metrics have to be बच्चे को कितना समझ में आया, कितना सीखा उसने. Outcome metrics cannot be attendance rate क्या था, fees कितना collect हुआ, आज वो teacher आई क्या, क्या हमारा. Those are inputs and outputs that are a necessary but insufficient condition towards ultimate. I think the moment we all sort of focus on student learning, the approach to that may be different and at the choice of each school leader. But you have to start measuring that. You have to start communicating to parents the value of that. And then you have to start charging higher fees because you are sort of the A game in town on delivering learning outcomes. And learning outcomes are the reasons why their children earn higher salaries.
That's true. And I'm going to now close this conversation. But as I close, if you feel that there is something that you have to say, otherwise you have to forever forget about it, then you can jump in and make the closing remark. What I wanted to share, Pranav, speaking to you, just opens my mind and opens my heart to the work that you do, because you guys are working on real impact. You guys are working with children in the center of this whole equation. You are talking about getting high quality learning gains across every single child. And I feel it is time. I think in India, there's a joke, remember, that the person who's not worried in a meeting is the guy who's found somebody to blame. And I sometimes feel that in schools that a principal will blame the teacher will then, blame the parent will then blame the tuition teacher will then blame the child, and then the child becomes the victim. And I hate it when the victim is the smallest, youngest, or weakest person.
Yes.
The quality of a society, the quality of a community, the quality of a race can be said by how we treat the weakest among us. And in our system, children are the weakest. And they need the strongest people to support them, to guide them, to protect them, and to empower them. And I see you, the work that you're doing, as those people. It is time for school principals, it is time for school owners to call a spade and have the courage to acknowledge, the courage to share, and the courage to care, and to get things in place so that the most softest, kindest, and the most promising asset that we have, the children, we do what we have to do to give them the best that we possibly can.
Absolutely. And all human beings have an innate desire to learn, to get better. All human beings, all students have unlimited potential that is sort of unlocked at birth, but starts getting trapped by sort of social interactions. I feel that the demographic that India has from a potential perspective is amazing. And I think the reason I come to work every day is because I remember sort of my childhood, and the child who was on the street is an unproductive asset. And maybe that's a bad word to say, but I'm saying the child there could do much more, could create much more value than begging, right? So I think that's the thing that I've stuck to this for the last 11 years, because I feel like when I go on the field and I see some of the same students, I met them 1 or 2 years ago, that they've learned a little bit more. I'm not attributing all of that to myself. I think there are many, many system actors at play. But what I'm seeing is the possibility that when things go right, when our system improves, when the stakeholders do their share, when we play our share on assessments and learning, when you play your share on providing high quality education at affordable prices, then that child is sort of served, right? So it doesn't matter what our titles are, designations are, what our theories of change are, as long as we can focus that, ultimately we are serving the child, we are accountable to the child, where he or she is understanding and leading a good citizenship life that has meaningful work and a good standard of living, then all our efforts are worth it.
Thank you. Thank you, Pranav, for doing what you do and walking alongside me and walking alongside every teacher and school leader. That's it, folks. That was Pranav Kothari from Educational Initiatives, also called EI, who are the pioneers of the asset test. You, as a parent, a school leader, a principal, or a teacher, can go and use it. Get online, use Google, find them, and great things are going to happen in your life. Thanks, Pranav.
Thanks for hosting, Willie.